Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Poetry. In this video, I'm going to be looking at William Blake's London as part of the Time and Place anthology for the edXL English Literature GCSE. This video is simply going to focus on content, context, and form. There will be another video coming your way, which will be analysing 5 key quotes. But for now, let's get started on introducing this poem. Let's quickly remind ourselves what this poem is about. Our narrator, who we assume is William Blake, we assume this is autobiographical, recalls a moment walking through the streets of London and observing all of the suffering around him. He observes marks of weakness on the faces of the people around him. He thinks about the poor chimney sweeps. He thinks about all of the cries he can hear. He thinks about the soldiers dying for the monarchy. And as he walks through and as he recounts what he's seeing, he thinks about the worst thing on his journey through London, and that is the sound of the kind of sounds of prostitution and all of the disease, the venereal diseases that are happening because of that industry. It's really a poem that is about how the kind of modern world has created a dark place full of kind of suffering and control, and it's a real kind of call to action to do something about it. Let's start thinking about some context to help you out. Great idea to have flashcards with you and you can kind of jot down some of these ideas. Just going to give you key quotes and talk around them. So this is the lovely William Blake here in front of you. He was around from 1757 to 1828. And the poem that he wrote, London, was written in 1794 along with another collection of poems, which I'll speak about just in a minute. A very important thing to understand about William Blake is that he was a non-conformist. Sometimes people just get caught up in the idea of him being a romantic poet and therefore being quite kind of pre-industry and pro the natural world and the innocence of childhood. But he was actually sort of perhaps more than that. He was very political and he really wanted to seek change. So he was a non-conformist. He didn't kind of stick by the status quo. Now, because of the time period he's living in, obviously, and the fact that he's a romantic poet, yes, you are going to see that impact of the Industrial Revolution. The Romantics were very anti the Industrial Revolution, and they took solace in the world around them. But it's not just the Industrial Revolution that is relevant to this poem. He was also really, really inspired by the French Revolution, by the rising up of the proletariat, the working classes, the peasants in France, and the overthrowing of the monarchy. And actually there are elements of this poem that feel almost like a call to action, like he is saying to the people of London, stand up, you know, shake off those sort of shackles that are put on us by the monarchy, by the government, stand up, revolt. Now, this poem, as I said, was written in 1794 as part of a collection. This one came from a collection called Songs of Experience, but actually Songs of Experience goes hand in hand with Songs of Innocence. So these collections of poems juxtapose one another. Songs of Innocence is all about the sort of beauty in the world, particularly the sort of childhood innocence, nature, joy and happiness, whereas Songs of Experience, as you can imagine, are about the kind of darker side of the soul. It's about the impact of industry. It's about suffering, which is why London fits here quite so perfectly. Now I'm just going to take you through a few ideas about form. Form is so important to your essays because it's the sort of high-level stuff. So the first thing that you'll notice about the poem is that it is a series of quatrains, i.e. 4 lines each, and there are 4 of them. The rhyme scheme is very straightforward. It is an A-B-A-B rhyme scheme, and for the majority of the time it is written in iambic tetrameter. Iambic tetrameter means 4 feet, which means 7 to 8 syllables, and iambic means that the stress is on the second beat of each foot. So I wander through each charted street near where the charted Thames does flow. However, there is the odd variation where we get a kind of anapestic rhythm. So I'll give you an example. An anapest is where rather than having 2 syllables and a foot, what you actually have is 3 syllables where the first 2 are unstressed. So the perfect example is this: and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. So here we're starting with an anapestic stress, okay? Now, you might think to yourself, well, that's a lot of lovely words, but why? Okay, now, here is the best way of looking at it. I think that what Blake is trying to do is create like ideas about control. So the fact that we're in quatrains with a strict rhyme scheme, rigid rhyme scheme, this is about the kind of control that is being placed on London and on the natural world. It's a criticism of that. But where he's breaking the rhythm, perhaps you could argue it's that idea about being a nonconformist and breaking free and changing things up somewhat. Some people like to say that the ABAB rhyme scheme is normally associated with things that are quite jolly, which means that actually that's quite an ironic sort of stance to take. It's using a rhyme scheme that is associated with happiness to illustrate just how much suffering there is. You can use both of those ideas or just one of them. They're there for you. The last little thing I'll draw your attention to is that some people feel that this stanza is deliberately acrostic because if you look at the beginning of each of those lines spells out here, which is an imperative, isn't it? It's a call to action. Listen, you know, listen to what we're saying. That's quite nice as well. That's it from me. That was just to give you a little bit of background, a little bit on form. If you would like more, there's another video coming your way with 5 key quotes and detailed analysis. Thanks so much for watching. Happy revising.